You gotta trust when you're hungry. You gotta trust when you're on your knees. You gotta trust the mystery.
Welcome back to Jess Klein's Big Table. My name is Jess Klein. I'm a singer-songwriter, touring artist, recording artist, and this podcast features conversations with fellow artists and activists whom I admire and want to share their wisdom with you. I'm so excited for you to hear this conversation with my guest today. Reagan Mitchell, a native of Nashville, Tennessee, earned their bachelor and master's degrees in music with an emphasis in jazz studies, and his educational specialist and Doctor of Philosophy degrees with an emphasis in curriculum and instruction. Their transdisciplinary training in composition, performance, and educational philosophy has afforded him the space to explore the social, communal, therapeutic, political, and geographic implications of music. In addition to currently being an associate professor in the Division of Liberal Arts at University of North Carolina School of the Arts, Reagan has freelanced as a saxophonist, composer, and arranger in the Nashville, Greeley, Denver, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Winston-Salem, Charlotte, Raleigh-Durham, and Greensboro areas. Some of the musical luminaries they have performed with are Charlie Hunter, Bobby Previtt, Gennario Jarrell, Randy Brecker, Ernestine Anderson, David Liebman, Slide Hampton, Deborah Brown, Tim Higgins, Dick Oates, Steve Wiest, Marvin Stamm, Mike Longo, and Benny Golson. Reagan's scholarship brings together curriculum theory, ethnic studies, Black diaspora studies, critical race theory, queer theory, critical geography, and critical sound studies. One of my favorite people to talk to. I think I said that already. Reagan has a way of making connections and seeing connections between systems and between ideas that I find to be so expansive. And I'm just so excited that they were able to be here. So please enjoy this conversation with Reagan Mitchell. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, and are you you're somewhere in Durham or Raleigh today, or were you?
Well, oh gosh.
So you just get around.
It's a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Me and my partner try to give each other like little mini vacations,
Yeah. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. And so like, we usually do our little things. She does like a little house by like a lake.
Yeah.
And I usually go to Greensboro and just do Airbnb. I went and found like a little tiny house in Durham and just chilled out,
That is cool.
Yeah, so like 2 or 3 days. I was there, I was checking out and I was like, I'm not sure if this would be easier for you or whatever. But either way, I was planning on making the trip, planning on being here just to make sure that I was on time and in place before I did.
Yeah, I hope that in the future it can be an in-person thing. You're only the second interview I've recorded.
Oh,
so.
I'm honored. Oh. Seriously. I mean, like, I'm honored to be on this platform with you. And once again, just, big shout out to the work that you're doing, and trying to promote and,
thank you.
Being out in the community like you are. And
thank you.
Trying to help make people, insisting people really think of the socio-cultural element that what we do it is, rather than this cute little...
Yeah, I've never really been into the cute thing. I mean, I'm into things that are cute, but I've always felt like, no. I don't really do cutesy.
Oh, yeah.
Not... Right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, we know.
Okay.
You don't have to, you don't have to walk that, you don't have to walk me through that at all.
Okay. Okay.
I was like, the first day we laid eyes, I was like, yep.
Yeah.
It's like a fit of righteous indignation.
Yes, I know. We just went right in. I'm gonna share with people. So Reagan and I met because he's one of the musicians on the Martha Bassett show, which for people outside North Carolina, this is like a bi-monthly live show with a killer backup band in a theater. And as soon as Reagan started talking to me, I was like, okay, so you're so open, and you just seem to naturally make all these connections, and as I was reading more about your work and all the disciplines and all your degrees and all the music that you make, it just seems like you have a gift for finding connections and being connective.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think that's spot on. I mean, first of all, like, will you walk around and help me and help people understand me better?
I'll just be next to you. As like,
exactly. That would be like the alternate, because my partner jokes about, like, I have like these very like these references, and she's like, yes, I'm going to footnote for you now.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, like, absolutely. I mean, to sort of, to make sure I just attend to that point that you raised, like, I see so much of what we do collectively, as, these are mediums to articulate a much deeper thing, right? The medium itself is not solely the content. It's this existence with these contents that are, as much spiritually connected as much as they are, and, the spiritual and sociocultural, and thinking about, like, what is, like, radical equity, what is the radical love, what is deep education, all these things, what does it look like? I've, like, really sat with the music and just, the music, the research, all of that. The music is the research for me as much in many ways. All these things. Yeah. I've sat with these I've really tried to be careful not to put very rigid binaries in them, And I mean, that's partly taken from, like, so many of our elders and what they've given to us, and, so whether we're thinking about Coltrane or Dylan or Abby Lincoln,
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, part of that is, like, taking that from, but also from familial elements. My mother was a psychologist and my father was a historian. Like, I think there was always this grounded grassroots element to how they did the work, so witnessing that in ways too.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Was this a mindset or a way of looking at things that you picked up from your folks? Because it's like, when I read about your approaches, I can kind of see how having the historian and the psychologist mindset, I can see those things sort of intertwined. And are your folks also sort of looking for those connections, or do you feel like that was something that... Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, did I cut you off? I'm sorry if I did.
No, please.
No, absolutely. No, I mean, it's so much, like, that's from the standpoint, it's like, and once again, I think that part of that thing of deriving, like, these are the mediums that they try to do different types of community work through, like...
Okay, got it.
I always joke, the joke, but also the truth is like, as far as, like, my parents, and actually my little brother and I were talking about this the other day. I was saying, I always thought it was cool because people would come over and meet our parents, and then it would transition to, I'm coming to see your parents, and I'm coming to see you. And I thought that was dope as hell, Like, I thought that was cool, Like, because I'm like, I think my parents are cool, I think my parents are cool. But, I mean, part of that was really special in, witnessing how, my mother did the different types of community work. I mean, she wasn't, I think a lot of times people can think about, like, different types of, being a psychologist is a very cold profession. Yeah. But I mean, she was very much, as I call them both, very soulful intellects, very soulful intellects. And so even for her, like, I mean, like, understanding, like, this work that she's also doing, but also the work of trying to, like, aid families in sort of navigating, like, insurance and being able to, like, insurance and different types of policy and being able to set up different types of care for their family.
Yeah.
Advocating for children in the system,
Yeah.
A lot of her research, and one thing is I have no problem about I don't mince words about this, but when she was doing her graduate work, a lot of her research was really important, and it was actually stolen to set up a lot of the early Head Start programs in Nashville, Tennessee. She never was credited with it.
Wow.
And to kind of think about the testament it is to, once again, but she lived her life in a deep service to people.
Yeah.
So thinking about that type of work, but also thinking about like how she lived her life, and sometimes just in the classroom, I tell this story. I say, like, I remember, being in the pediatrician's, going from the pediatrician's office, which ironically, that pediatrician was my dad's pediatrician. But you can imagine this, it's, it's a white pediatrician. That was my dad's pediatrician.
Wow.
That was very much, my father was born in like 47.
Yeah.
So if you think about that, Dr. Caney, shout out to Dr. Caney if you're there. He was, sweet guy.
Yeah.
When I had my asthma attack, he was there every day checking to make sure I was okay in the hospital as a kid. But but we were coming from that an appointment with Dr. Caney, and I remember, like, there were these two young black kids, and they were like playing around like this like when they were coin meters,
Yeah.
I don't know if they have,
I don't know.
But it was amazing, and the thing is, it was like it's a deep lesson I carry in about thinking about what it is to be in community, what it is to be an educator, all these things. But one of the things that happened is one of the kids walked up and said, like, "What does this do?" And pointed at the coin slots, and without missing a beat, she immediately just stopped and took her time very carefully to be like like really walk through.
Wow.
But I mean, it's also sort of living with that narrative and what it means in different ways, right? Because in many ways, I'm thinking about this from the perspective of thinking about, once again, the rationalized violence against BIPOC folks, against femmes, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Against queer folks, against poor folks, right?
Yeah.
And sort of thinking about like realizing how that particular analysis might have been actually working, and particularly thinking about like a particular responsibility that she has to really engage.
Wow.
But almost in a way, I'm
like
almost
a
thinking
protective.
And just thinking about, once again, there's a constant rationalized violence against children, and so one of the things I talk about in one of the courses I teach is about, like, there's this constant rationalization in the ways in which in which childhood is taken away. There are children that aren't allowed childhoods, and we have to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
So I think with that, also my father, that the joke was, it's like he had at least a 51% adoption rate with the classes.
Wow.
And he was the cat in which I think he had, he taught at Fisk University, which was an undergraduate institution, for 40 years. Yeah. And had approximately 50 students that went ahead and did their PhDs after. Wow. A lot of people, a lot of the converting to history. People finding their space in that. Yeah. And also, just like a lot of these narratives, like, these things that come out because my father transitioned and did his ancestral transition 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that is always amazing is to think about, like, the narratives that come out that still
after
emerge.
Someone transitions.
Yeah. And there are a lot of beautiful narratives, And one of the things that we were talking about is that, it's like we all have these stories that people give us, once again, I by the way have 3 siblings. I have 2 older brothers and one younger brother.
I was reading that.
Yeah. So I want to make sure, but I put that out there. But we were having this discussion, and there were a few things that came out. One, it was like, when somebody, I remember, Roman, my youngest brother, when he was like, when they realized, when one of the dad's past students realized that was, daddy, that he was his son.
Yeah.
He was like, oh my gosh, you know what? Your daddy bought me my first suit.
Oh,
right?
wow.
He bought me my first suit. Or then there was another gentleman
wow.
that like literally, I think, he'd come here from Nigeria. Once again, you come here from Nigeria, you come to like the temperate part of the South, right?
Yeah.
When that cold hits, it hits differently in different ways, right?
Yeah, sure, right? Yeah.
And so like the cat didn't have like a proper jacket or whatever. And so like Dad recognized him. He immediately pulled over and took his jacket off and gave it to him. Oh my
goodness.
So, like there are, and these are not narratives as a flex, but narratives of saying like there's a level of consciousness that I think, I'm trying to honor and continually, and I'm also been it was made aware with sort of this both simultaneous ontological and epistemological engagement that they had with the world, and I think many, and also all of us in many ways, right? So
was there this is so interesting, but because before you started talking, one of my questions was going to be, does this work feel spiritual to you? And because it does to me, just witnessing the connections you make and those, it's incredible to hear. I mean, maybe it shouldn't be, but it's incredible to hear those stories about your folks just taking people in, just I'm responsible to help show this, give to this or offer what I can to this other person who's younger. Was there like a narrative, a specific narrative about spirituality as you were a kid, or religion as you were growing up, or was it more like we do this because we're human and part of our job is to recognize our ability to give and to help others, or what do you feel?
It's always interesting because in many ways I always say those boundaries bleed profusely. Profusely bleed. Those boundaries are bloody, not in a sense of waste, but in a sense of like the seepages, I think I grew up, I was born and raised Catholic,
Okay,
And so, thinking about, once again in Nashville, I think the only black parish in Nashville, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny because, that's not a problem if you go to Chicago or if you go to New Orleans, right?
Yeah.
So you throw a rock, you hit like 5.
Yeah.
Minimum 5 in 1 foot,
Yeah.
So but the church that I grew up in, my grandparent, there was actually a plaque where my grandparents had given money to to actually build one of the put in one of the stained glass windows, in the St. Vincent de Paul in Nashville. So there was that, and then also though my mom, converted to Catholicism, there's still also a presence in her side of the family, which was African Methodist Episcopal, which, understand that, once again, there's definitely a deep history of the commitment to community work, And to the point where, like that, my mother's parents, my grandparents, were those parents that, went to those Martin Luther King, prayer meetings, In fact, mom would talk about where she remembered like King once like patting her on the head,
Oh my goodness! Wow.
And then and then also she remembers like going to King's wake, in Atlanta. So it was just a lot of things to process, and also to be, if you imagine, like if you're familiar with North Nashville, the
a little bit.
Yeah, and just once again I always like had to push people on Nashville because they think it's like this very white space.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
no, Nashville. I said, like, it's not Music City because of all the recording studios. It's Music City because of the Fisk Jubilee Singers, you know?
Yeah, wow. Wow.
And what happened was, you know, when, of course, I don't know if you know the story, but when they went over
they went over to England, or
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and then Queen Victoria heard this, and she was like, I don't know what this Nashville place is, but it must be a very musical city, right?
All right, Queen
must be
Victoria.
a very musical, right?
All right, Queen
must be
Victoria.
a very musical place, you know?
Yeah.
And so, like, if you imagine, you know, you look at the tradition, you look at, like, what is that trademark of the original Fisk Jubilee Singers.
Yeah.
And you go in the Appleton Room in the Jubilee Hall and see that actual, it's humongous, right? It's a humongous portrait. But if you can imagine, like, once again, these children of formerly enslaved people,
Yeah.
you know, being in the court, being painted by her portrait, being moved so profoundly that she's like, no, you need to paint these cats.
Yeah.
You know, and it's, you know, it sits in the oldest permanent structure on Fisk University campus, which is Jubilee Hall. However, the oldest is was it the Little Theater, which was originally an army barrack, which was where Fisk was actually located down by Union Station. You know? Okay. Yeah, it was army barracks where Union Station is located. You know? So.
Wow. Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because I remember seeing and learning something about that in I don't know what documentary, and just, wow. There's so many. I just feel like everything's connected when I listen to you speak. So I feel like
I'm like, you are in kinship, right? Okay, like I think the same way. Like, you are not.
You know, do you feel like, you know, I often feel like, why don't people look for those connections between, they don't look for how systems are intertwined, or how this affects this, or how this is intrinsically part of this, or how this is messy and it's not a binary, and how, you know, like, we're not. I have always felt like an outsider, because I always try and step back and look at, like, what is, like, the overall system. It's partly like the Aquarius in me. I'm like, I need to know what that system is. But like, what is the overall system that we are looking at here, and how does it get so complicated when we all have, I think, you know, I think we're all born with the same range of emotion, or like the same, we have, I don't know, I'm talking in circles, but like, it's like we have built, or you know, patriarchy and white supremacy has built so much, it's made everything so complicated, and yet we're taught this is simple, and things are binary, and these are straight lines, and if you do this, this will happen, and like, it's like, no, you know, like, and we're first of all, we're all messes, and that's also where the beauty is, and like, why wouldn't we celebrate that? Like, where is the, I'm going off I'm on a soapbox, but like, where is the joy in just trying to be on top of something? You know, like, just trying to be with that kind of power, when it's like, when I hear you talk about, you know, like the tradition of social justice in the Black churches, or like, I feel like that makes so much sense to me. Like, if you're talking about a spiritual practice and a community and having a heart, why wouldn't that be part of what, I mean, I don't know. We don't have time to go into the whole history of colonialism, but like, it's just, I don't know. Just some thoughts that came to mind listening to you. It just feels like such a freer and more human way to be, to acknowledge how things are connected, and it's painful, but it's real, at least, you know. I don't know.
Yes, you do. First of all, you do know deeply. Don't say that, you know. I mean, the thing, Gosh, I wish you had just like, you had just been in Durham and you just come by. Do you know Brevin? You know Brevin Hampton?
I don't think so.
Oh my gosh, fabulous drummer, percussionist, and just person. You should peep this cat out. He's in Durham.
Okay.
But like Brevin and I share. We share a musician connection, but also really a deep kinship with each other. And it's funny because we were over like I hit him. I've hit up just a few people when I was in town. To go just sit with. And we were having this very, very much this similar conversation. And it's always an interesting thing when you bring in factors of thinking about capital, right? Because I think to really say these things is, once again, what are you doing? You're basically unhinging the ability to actually hold power. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, and I think there's a lot of narratives that got to change if you start really acknowledging this. You're realizing it's a lot more complicated. And actually, a lot of the ways the narratives have very much been manipulated and inverted in very problematic ways. Yeah. Right. Which is like something I walk through where I talk about European expansion. Right. Because European expansion is just not like, people get on ships and then they land, it's bloody fucking murder,
Right.
Right. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think, I'm also going to say the idea of building a nation state is very violent.
Right. Yeah. Right.
The idea of the nation state is a very violent thing. Period. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, but the whole thing of you start asking these questions. One of the things I immediately go into, I say, because it's not only white supremacy, but it's also about thinking about sort of heteronormative.
Yeah.
Violent heteronormativity, right?
Yeah.
That frames. And really, it's when you talk about European expansion, thinking about these ways of once again being able to structure, right? Because it's matriarchy is, in the scheme of things, matriarchy is so much older.
Yeah.
The idea of matriarchy is so much, how many matriarchal nations, communities were there? Right?
Yeah.
That's not a secret, right?
Yeah.
You look at that, right?
Yeah.
And, you think about Vasco da Gama, and what happens with that. Because it's not only, it's a restructuring of a lot of ideals that we think of as so amazing and new. I mean, they're very progressive ideas, but they're very ancient. I often say, it's not the future is him. It's it's the future, the future of the past. The reality is future, it's not, the future is not queer as fuck. It's always has been queer as fuck.
Yes.
And it's and you start putting these things together in different ways, because just things even going pop off on on our soil, right? Because it's not a coincidence. If you just think about this Salem witch trials, right? We understand that that's very much a gendered thing, right?
Yeah.
Because it was over 80% are femmes.
Yeah.
that are murdered. I mean, if we talk about thinking about the revolts of enslaved people on the vessels, right? It's a majority of those revolts were started by femmes. Because because the people that they thought they were once again enslaving, put it in the barracoons, were sort of these docile femmes. But they were actually the warriors.
Right.
Also been thinking about the history of queerness, because to talk about queerness is to talk about a very ancient series of relationships. I mean, once again, the understanding of what we think about transness, which is very ancient, and thinking about historically. Yeah. And I think that's especially important when people sort of, especially, I think with any narrative, right? But a lot of times when, thinking about Black diaspora studies and, having folks that you have some folks early on that would say once again, the idea of queerness was something that was brought together by the white man, I'm like, no, actually, it's been queer. It's been queer for a long.
Queer. Okay.
It has been so queer. That's not to negate that there's not, that when we talk about like genocidal spaces, that rape is not part of it. Rape and genocide and all these things are not part of it, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, to sort of like vilify like that becomes really problematic. And I mean, to the point, and often I say, like, I want you to understand when you come into a space with me that really this thing has been historically a very black film queer way that this is why we need to give it up to so many of our black film queers, right? Understand that there's very much a gift that black feminism has blessed me, but also so many others with. The blessing of, once again, queerness, right? Begin to think about, so many heroines like a Pauli Murray, right? Or like a Bayard Rustin, right? That are so essential for really even begin to be able to like sort of have these possible ways of dreaming legalistically in different ways, right? So yeah, but I mean, like you say, like it all runs together, and you're like, and it's like always kind of feeling like, to use being situated in a space of fugitivity about it.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
right. No, I mean,
just not in the box. I'm just not.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's something really important to thinking about like how capital functions and what type of capital is attempting to be held, right? Because if we start talking about institutions and or what's the other thing we were talking about? Like, it's like, come on, like the Nobel Peace Prize, or Nobel Prize, like you think that they're giving out the principle to be able to? Oh, right. No, it's not. It's the interest, and the interest is what they give, right?
Yeah.
And so, and it's like in so many ways we have to understand it like that. There's this principle that in many ways that was laid down, especially when we talk about the U.S., when we talk about indigenous folks, and we talk about black folks, and we talk about so many of our non-white immigrants presently and historically. Right. There is like there is the capital of those bodies that was put down. As a way to sort of lay a foundation that assures that the interest is what we witness now, what is bequeathed, and why we sort of witness why these atrocities are able to happen. Why is it that we see Sister Sonia, see what happens to Sister Sonia, right? Right. Why that and it's. People say, like, we pass this? And I'm saying, no, I don't know. Because, once again, if you've laid out a system that assures that they will continually happen. Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. I think it's like, it feels, and just, I experience so much of culture. I mean, I'm white. Hi, I don't know if you noticed that I have white skin, but like, I haven't experienced firsthand racism, but from what I'm looking at, it feels like so many more people are making all of these connections, and yet there's such a backlash, or the backlash. Is the backlash louder? Are we just seeing it more? Is it getting amped up because the powers that be want us to be afraid? I don't know. Those are kind of rhetorical questions, I guess.
I mean, it's all. I just
Reagan, can you just solve all the problems of the world on this call?
No, because that's not going to happen. It's just going to get more and more. I think we're just going to leave in a state of existential trauma.
Oh no!
But I would be concerned if we didn't have a little bit of existential trauma. I'd be concerned if people were just like, think positive. And I'm like,
oh my goodness,
I'm about to run away from you right now because you're going to get us all killed. And I'm talking about, once again, marginalized people. And I'm talking about, once again, our accomplices, not allies, accomplices.
Wow. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it's a fascinating thing, right? It's fascinating looking at like the idea of thinking about playbooks and once again how they're put through, looking at different things where, like, because once again we talk about, I think we were talking about intellectual traditions, and I think is it cool if we talk about once again like Jewish tradition?
Please,
right?
yeah,
Right?
you might actually no. I feel like I just kind of absorbed some of it, like genetically, because I wasn't raised, you know, in synagogue or anything. But to me, I want to hear what you have to say. To me, it feels like that's part of what it means to be Jewish. It's like you ask questions and you you look at things critically, and you show up in spaces where people are advocating for something better because it could be you. But yeah, go ahead. Talk.
I am not trying to Jewish explain anybody. Right? I'm not. Trust me.
Oh my goodness, I've never heard that before. That's so funny.
I am not trying to be that person, but I think it's I think it's a parallel in the. I mean, I think like we think about traditions and think about the overlapping of traditions, right? In many ways, what it looks like, thinking about like, you know, how Wes would talk about the prophetic, you know, the prophetic black, you know, tradition, right? In many ways, you know, it looks interesting. It looks in a similar way to like how you know, once again, I've witnessed some of my, you know, a number of my Jewish brethren, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And especially, and it's like, you know, it's like when we talk about this, we talk about like, you know, there sometimes the family members, you know, you have that tension with.
Yeah.
Right? And I say that, you know, once again, I say that for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes, it doesn't sit well sometimes when I walk in certain spaces and I say, like, this whole civil rights thing is a very black, queer, femme thing, you know.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You know, if you want from Fannie Lou Hamer, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, Harriet Tubman was an Afrofuturist and, you know, all these things. So, I mean, some of these things don't necessarily sit well. And I'm just saying that, like, it could be our folks, right? Folks in so many ways that maybe seem like they would, you know, that maybe are in our space intellectually and spiritually, or have access to space, but it's like, no, you're not necessarily.
Yeah.
We have some serious problems here. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So whether we talk about the point of thinking about like violent heteronormativity, or in the same sense thinking about like, you know, what it means to be in a space, what it may mean to be in the space when you're like dealing very openly with like Zionist, you know, dealing with Zionism, you know, in many ways, which you know, once again, I think in many ways people maybe won't give us, but I mean, like, I think like, as far as what I've experienced and just thinking about like for, you know, once again, my partner's Jewish, you know, you know, our daughter is definitely raised within those communities. I mean, there are a number of very queer Jewish communities that we're part of, in addition to a lot of other communities that we're part of, right?
Yeah.
And just so I think in many ways, witnessing how the tradition is definitely about like the inquiry, or really not necessarily a history of saying like, if you question, then you're going to hell.
Yeah.
Right? Right? Or you know, it's in many ways sometimes it's like I feel like I run into more so of an agnosticism, right? Which is not a negative thing, and I would often try to make sure I say that I see agnosticism as a deep sense of spirituality as well, right? You know?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, but I'm trailing off. Still,
that's okay. I'm following you. Shepherd, be the sheepdog.
Exactly. Bring back to the flock. You know. But I mean, you know, it's so. But thinking about like the intellectual, what like might look like the intellectual traditions, right? And in many ways, that's been a part that I think about. You know, when I deal with my folks, especially a lot of my Jewish folks that are once again pro-Palestinian and really, right? It's like it's really sort of leaning into that inquiry deeper, right? And even further, or like thinking about like even witnessing like how Howard Zinn works, right? Because, and once again, Howard Zinn, I came to know him through Daddy. Because because Daddy was using his works in the 80s. In his classes, early 80s, like when shit first came out. I'm sorry if I'm cursing.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're fine. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
When the shit came out.
It's not going on like NPR. So it's just going on whatever podcast world. So
yeah, but I mean, like when it came out in 1980s, I remember Daddy being like, Daddy being like, because I had the book in one of my history classes.
Yeah.
And he walks up and he's like, "Hey, man." So he has my book, and then he has his original book.
Wow.
And he's like, "Man, they're doing this?"
Yeah.
It's like, man, they thought I was crazy as hell when I was doing,
Wow.
And that was everybody. That was like everybody.
Yeah, he faced a lot of,
Yeah.
He was
doing it in class.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But once again, like, witnessing even... Like and that was part of that, but it was also interesting to sort of witnessing Zinn's shift in many ways, right? Because one of the beautiful stories that Howard Zinn tells, which is indicative of really sort of how we think about people's history of the United States, of sort of everything that he's written on, right? He wrote on, which was so prolific, right? And in many ways, sort of thinking about how also sort of track that tradition, the Jewish tradition in ways.
Yeah.
I mean, in the deep level of inquiry, right?
Yeah.
The deep level of inquiry and the unsettledness. Right?
Yeah, the unsettledness.
Yes, which I mean, once again, that's very much part of like my Black intellectual tradition, in many ways, the Black spiritual, intellectual tradition, right? I mean, in many ways, you look at King. I mean, King, for everything for what King is also struggling with this deeper point of like that Kierkegaard or Hegel could never answer, and even though he was, once again, let's not forget, he was very much trained as a classical philosopher.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
I mean, or like even the West, or thinking about even a Reverend Barber, right?
Yeah.
Or and so many other folks I think about, Pauli Murray, right?
Yeah.
Once again, thinking about like, at the end of the day, there is something that, though they're skilled in these legalistic and these historic and these philosophical traditions, they cannot necessarily even get further. There's something that can't be grasped in a sense, but must be given up to thinking about like, what is it that the higher power can give us? Yeah. And understanding that, not saying it has to be this or that, but thinking of understanding sort of the broader there's a nomenclature they're using to talk about a very similar thing, right? Yeah. Yeah, and also thinking about a history of where they put the spaces that they put themselves in, right? Because we talk about, I mean, once again, like Pauli, I think Pauli is, the non, is love of my life. That is, I am their nibbling. Yeah. I think many of us are their nibblings, right? And really beginning to think, what does it mean when, once again, you are queer, you are non-binary, you are Black, but once again, to say like, but the Episcopalian faith, or like once again, a faith. I'm going to once again be ordained in this faith. Yeah. And even, once again, Episcopalians, once again, very open, right? Yeah. Yeah. Pretty open. But once again, there's still a space where they were not supposed to be. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And really sort of thinking about the very problematic way, even how sometimes people read them as female. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So, thinking about so many of those things. Now, I need to come back to a certain part. What was the part that we were going?
Talking about inquiry and Jewish, like Jewish tradition of inquiry. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Zen. We were coming back to Zen. Yeah, okay. You were coming back to Howard Zinn, but I mean, like, once again, like, those traditions look very similar in many ways. You look very similar, right?
Yeah.
And once again, I don't think they're necessarily in a vacuum,
Let me, I have a question. Can I interject?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It's like, the question, I mean, okay, and it's also a big question, of course, but the question is, let me see if I can put this together. It's like, how do we get, like, okay, you're talking about ostensibly two kind of different traditions that are very similar, or they're interconnected, but they're maybe came from different, whatever. How do we get people to understand? How do we get people to understand the similarities? How do we get people to understand our similarities as humans? That's more powerful than turning against each other. Like, how do we? Again, kind of not expecting you to solve that on this interview, but I'm just.
Well, I mean, first of all, I think to kind of back up a little further, like, I think the problem sometimes is, and you're not saying this, but sometimes I think people want to say we're all the same.
Yeah, no,
you're not saying that. You're not saying that, but I think there's a whole thing where people will like vilify difference. And
right.
And it's like, okay. I mean, like, we are different. Like,
yeah.
Right? I mean, like, even when we're talking about this, it's like, yes, these are coming from very different traditions.
Yeah.
But once again, you get a very similar sense of deep inquiry.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or when you see Desmond Tutu crying, right? Desmond Tutu is crying at the atrocities that are occurring, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but and really asking this whole point, like, God, why?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's funny because I think I don't know if it's about getting people I think there's something about the power of the why.
Yeah.
Why is that? Like, why does that bother you so much?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Why? And in many cases, it's interesting because the other part, and maybe the other part that I haven't said as clearly, and I thank you for kind of helping me be able to say this really clearly through your directing, the very good, well maintained pasture you've created. But like, the question is why. Why is it so important to articulate this like this? Right? What, when we talk about one's life. Why is it so important that we fight for these other things, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay. Okay. I think I'm from, once again, Nashville, Tennessee, right? But also, you've been checking out the legislature.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Justins have,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Atlas,
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
yeah.
But it's like, once again, it's like you witness, like, the Republican constituency, right? And it's like, man, like, why are y'all it's like, first of all, like, why are you pushing these bills through about guns? Why do you think why are you so in this idea of, like, when you talk about this point of guns, why do you want to have, like, an AR or whatever?
Yeah.
Why is that so important to you? Right?
Yeah.
What deals are you making? At what point, and like how, and then also, like, why do you think that teachers think that it is needed for them to be able to carry guns in the classroom? Because I'm gonna tell you, when they press that shit through, what happened? The teachers were like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Like, this is the dumbest fucking thing ever,
Yeah.
I mean, like, a ton that at least the ones that flooded the Capitol.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's always the question about why, and what is it that you're willing to give up, right? I think that like what capital, and I don't even know if it's or what capital needs to be shared, which that's important. That's a very important thing, because I think it requires so much of all of us.
Yeah,
right,
for sure.
But I mean, I think there's also like like reconciliation's a real thing, Yeah.
And
as much as like people want to talk about equality, like I'm like, oh, that's cool and everything, but everybody don't need the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Say more about that.
Well, I mean, like, I'm always like, I hear people say like use equality and equity interchangeably, and I'm like, oh, okay, now you can, if you want to do the equality thing, okay, cool, but don't use them interchangeably. But if you're going to use equity, what are you talking about? And my first question is, what are you willing to give up?
Yeah.
What is it? Because I mean, that is talking about reconciliation.
Yeah.
That is talking about like, how is land going to go back?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's talking about like, which interstate systems are we going to take out of these communities?
Backyard.
Yeah. And the list goes on. I mean, how are we going to once again pay back so many of these people that have needed the health care, particularly abortion?
Yeah.
Like, that is a very big, important thing that deals with, once again, chipping away at people that have, once again, that have amassed and hoarded, generationally, surpluses of resources. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not just like, I'm sorry. It's like, no, okay, you're sorry. You're sorry. Right. Now you gotta do some serious check,
right.
Like, how are you gonna be in service?
Right. Let's talk about making amends, not just lip service.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because it's like you think about even the idea of prisons. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And thinking about because once again there have been communities without prisons.
Yeah.
We know this, right? We know there's a certain number of indigenous communities that did not have prisons.
Yeah.
But there's a point of thinking about what it is to be in service in different ways. Not enslaved, but to be in a different kind of service.
Yeah.
For once again the wrong that has been done to that community.
Yeah.
By that community member.
Yeah. Right.
So so there's that point about I see that thrown around, and I think also there's this whole point where there's a certain impatience, right? Like, we're going to do this now.
Right.
Rather than, we can't do all this now. And I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah. That's not what it is. But I think there's a deep, long engagement. That's saying this deep engagement and what does it mean to make different, not to sound so clinical, but to think about different points of what does that reassessment look like? Rather, what does that maybe look like from month to month, week to week?
Right.
Versus, we do 10 years or 20 years,
Yeah.
So, I mean, shorter periods, but more frequent, or perhaps more frequent reassessments of what that can look like. Because I think because this world is presented in a variety of different ways and does a variety of different things really violently.
Yeah.
And we've also witnessed the power of certain figureheads, certain figureheads to be able to say that, once again, have such that weaponized language so much to the point you witness people, once again, that are completely fighting against their own interest. Yeah. And once again, you drive out to these beautiful areas in the country, and you're like, man, this is beautiful, but what the fuck is this Trump flag doing up here, right?
Yeah.
All that, what that type of thing, and asking, asking them to think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it's like, but why do you even go even further with that? If it's not white supremacy, what is it? Then what is it?
Right.
Help me understand.
What are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which I mean, at the same time, to think about that, talking about equity, and then also, of course, very much Whitney, to go back to my home state, witnessing like of the 28 recorded hate groups recorded in Tennessee, thinking about the neo-Nazis marching through, and like when we talk about equity, what does it mean to think about, just last week, what is it, those little black children playing their bucket drums for just earn a few bucks from tourists, and once again the Nazis with their swashikas coming screaming, expletives at these children.
Yeah.
And these are like grown fucking men,
Yeah, it's so hard to understand why someone would. Yeah, I don't know. There's.
Yeah.
It's like yeah.
No. You go. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's just like just having this conversation with my husband about how there's this sort of idea that's been, maybe it was at the Republican convention. I didn't watch it. didn't really want to watch it. But they were saying, well, we've got a lot of plans, but we can't talk about them. And it's like, well, hold on. Like, I mean, if you've got plans for millions of people, but you can't talk about them, there's probably something that's like, it's like, if it's got to be secret, or it's got to be this regressive level of, I don't know, I'm kind of saying several things at once, but if you have to revert to acting like a spoiled child to, I just, that's not, first of all, that's not a policy. That doesn't help anybody. And second of all, what is this fascination with, oh, we're just going to be mean, like we're tired of being nice, like I mean, I guess I think that there's this mentality that's like, well, my life was hard too, so I'm just gonna make it harder for everyone else. Or I don't. I do kind of want to. Perhaps we can do like a part 2, but I kind of want to. I kind of want to shift gears for 1 minute and just talk specifically about your jazz work.
Oh yeah,
if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Even though I feel like this whole conversation was like jazz. I mean, I'm a novice with jazz, but it felt very explorative and dynamic and improvisational. I don't know if it was for you.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, once again, I want to say, first of all, it's a blessing to be here with you, and once again, creating this space, and also it's also just great to see you.
Likewise.
Right? Like we need to find more time.
Yeah.
We need to find more time, even this or just outside of this together.
Yeah.
To just, screaming pillows in front of each other.
Okay. That sounds like a great activity. I love it.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, just before we make the transition, I think it's the one thing that's really important for us because, there are a number of us, we aren't doing well.
Yeah.
Right? I think the parts of people that are thinking about the policy on this part of the spectrum, then we're not doing well. I see all of us, and I say to all of us, I say, damn, y'all look fine. Y'all are beautiful as fuck. But you look tired.
Yeah.
We all look tired, right?
Yeah.
And so I think if anything, we need to make sure we find each other and really sort of think about what it is to try to care and nurture and care for each other and nurture each other and think about even deeper what is a much more robust sense of mutual aid than it might look like. So I just want to make kind of
thank you. No, thank you for going there because that's been a theme that has popped up in every conversation I've had in the last couple of weeks. It's like reframing from who are we electing to how are we caring for each other? What are we doing right here? The people we can reach out to. And yeah. I liked how you said, I read that you call your classrooms learning communities, your courses, community, just that's such a powerful, community. It feels like an really important concept.
Yeah.
And practice, not just concept.
Yeah, I mean, I also try to make sure. Also, it's funny, and then we can go into music. Just one more thing. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, like, the onus of learning is not on me. I mean, the onus of teaching is not on me. Right? I try to think about like what it means to have these spaces.
Yeah.
To really explore and work through ideas, and also do different types of community work, and really promote different types of care.
Yeah.
Not to necessarily stigmatize what is happening. So, like, in many ways, like, I'm always, once again, I want people to understand that these are very much, gender affirming spaces. These are not, these are, faith affirming spaces, right? You can't bring the dogmatism.
No.
You got some dogmatism, we're not going to do that, but that doesn't mean that these are sex positive spaces, right?
Yeah.
These body positive spaces. And one of the early points that I do raise really early is talking about menstruation, and I carry menstrual products
wow.
with me in my classes. And even though they're now available free through the Health Clinton Center, like sometimes people can't get across, and also it becomes this whole other point of being able to also talk about economically. Once again, looking at the quote unquote pink tax and how it's even got even more exorbitant, and really also encouraging people that maybe even if they don't necessarily need to utilize those products to walk through and economically and look at the sort of the economic microcosms.
Yeah.
And thinking, and in many ways I talk about it, I say some of y'all need the $35 that you may be able to use those products. It's between you getting like some more oodles and noodles, paying your light bill.
Yeah. Wow.
Or do I get some, and I'm going to say like, let me take a little bit, let's kind of distract away from that. Also, in many ways, it becomes a whole way to talk about, like, understand, like, we think about inflation, we think about, like, just the materials to be able to produce them.
Yeah.
How they're, once again, have become really problematic and economically create further economic struggle. And then also to talk about the idea of, like, menstruation is not on only menstruating bodies.
Wow, thank you. Thank you.
Oh my God. Well, wow. And I'm not trying to, and the thing is, it's like, I'm not trying to be brave, and people say, I'm like, no, this is the fucking responsibility we have, right?
Yeah.
Menstruation is a responsibility of all of us, and it's not something, it is not an illness, even though people's bodies experience differently and need to be able to ask for different types of care. I try to be very open about the fact that if you actually do need, once again, if it is hitting you in a certain way, please take that time, because the only reason I say this, Jess, is because I realized I hadn't had, and that was a few years ago. I really started doing that because I had one student that she was in class for 15 minutes and then she stepped out, and then afterwards she was like, she's not tapping on when she's like, "Can I speak to you, Reagan?" I was like, "Yeah," and she's like, "Hey, I'm so sorry. Once again, my period came on in middle class, and it was really heavy." And I was like, I mean, I get why you're apologizing, but why the fuck are you apologizing?
Yeah.
And actually, this is kind of a failing of me. So, like, actually, let's... And so that's why I started carrying the products, and once again, being able to have different types of products to accommodate different bodies.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But, I don't know, it's like, but also... It also becomes a whole part of thinking about, like, how do we necessarily begin to, like, pull that out to think very differently as a community, what people needs. It's like an allegory. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've had a number of students, and once again have been in the process of working through, doing different points of transitioning and finding their identity, discovering their identity. that have once again like also found community with each other. And, you know, I'll get text sometime, or I'll get like a text, or I'll get an email and they'll be like, hey, Reagan, I'm sorry I wasn't in class, but so-and-so was really having a hard time, was having really serious, like, was having an episode. And I was like, okay, you don't need to apologize. I don't know why you're like actually talking to me right now. Y'all get to be back taking care of each other. Also, you're the caretaker. How can I better support you? What do you need?
Yes. Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times people may say that doesn't actually, then they're like, well, how do you get through the material? And it's like, well,
It's the voice you made again.
And it's like, actually, because it's a pretty extensive amount of material that we do cover. You know, it's not impossible. We do cover quite a bit. But actually, I find that in many ways, they actually are utilizing very much these ideas to work through, but also bringing their own spec to it. And, you know, at the end of the day, this is not a flex on me, but people will say, I often hear people say like, oh my gosh, what do you teach in your classes? Because every time I bring up this one thing, they're like, oh yeah, we talked about this in Reagan's class, and so we talked about this in Reagan's class.
Wow.
And that'll be people that maybe had to miss. Once again, we're dealing with illness.
Yeah.
And under the table, you have to be like, let's figure out what we need to do.
Together.
You know, get together.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's that you don't care, which is immediately how it would register.
Right.
I think we actually need to talk about something different. Yeah. And once again, how do we begin to take the fear? Because once again, we've been taught with fear for a long, long time already. Yeah. I'm not here to do that. I'm not here to do that type of harm, even though I still indirectly do it. You know.
So I have an idea. Will you come back and we'll do a